All right, you've chosen the strong finisher category. Most people who go through the testing, the metabolic testing, are probably fall into this category. If you're training to, you have some kind of an event or some kind of a time frame where you want to optimize your endurance performance so that you can finish it strong, so that you can get through it and not only just get it done, but really thrive and enjoy. That could be anything from climbing a mountain, going backpacking, any kind of an adventure type trip where you're not used to being on your feet all day or on the bike all day, or in an event that will go fairly hard for an extended period of time. So they're really set up for people who are training for events. Most commonly, we're going to see multi-sport triathlons, Ironmen, and women, runners, cyclists. A lot of those events, this is the type of assessment that's going to provide the information you're looking for on how to train more effectively, and then how to also evaluate how your training is impacting your performance and abilities. So the central test here is the Cardio-Metabolic Profile, or CMP. It's really the metabolic fingerprint, or the fingerprint of your cardiovascular and metabolic systems. What you're going to be doing on this particular test is you're going to be riding a bike, a stationary bike, or running on a treadmill, or walking on a treadmill. And we're going to evaluate how you're using your oxygen and carbon dioxide, as well as how you're breathing. So you're going to be wearing a mask. It's a fairly quick protocol, so it's called a ramp protocol. Every minute we go up a little bit in workload, from an easy start to pretty much your all-out effort at the end, or you're as far as you can go before you feel like you have to quit. Now, we're doing this test for a variety of reasons. So you don't have to go to your absolute maximum to get a lot of information from the test. But if you can and are willing to, you're going to get that aerobic capacity benchmark, as well as it frames the picture pretty well as far as your overall endurance, fitness, and performance capabilities. So in essence, the test is fairly comprehensive, looking at all the systems. So we're looking at how you take that air in through your lungs and take the oxygen and deliver it into the heart, and through the vascular system it's pumped out by the heart into eventually the muscles, and the muscles' ability to utilize that O2 and then get rid of the CO2 through the whole system again. So it's evaluating these types of areas. So along the way through that assessment, we're able to come up with different indications of where you're starting to show some unusual trends of fatigue or breathing effort. So we call these ventilatory thresholds. So this is the second ventilatory threshold. Often we see this correlated with the lactate threshold. It's really an area where fatigue really starts to accelerate. Commonly at this area, you're not going to be able to carry on a conversation. It's because you're breathing so hard. So we're evaluating these thresholds along the way through the test. It's a 10 to 15 minute test. And along the way, we're going to see these different trend changes. So that first ventilatory threshold, often referred to as the aerobic threshold, and it's where we see fat utilization. These are fat calories per minute at its highest. And then in here, carbohydrates are what we're using as far as that instant glycogen storage. So again, if you have a well-trained aerobic system, we're going to have high fat utilization, low need for carbohydrates here in our zone 2. Soon after that aerobic threshold, where we see some of these changes, we'll notice that your fat utilization starts to go down, carbohydrate dependency goes up. And then when you hit that second ventilatory threshold, fatigue really starts to accelerate. It's hard to get rid of the waste products, and then we just have the kind of a really difficult time sustaining the load at this point and beyond. So typically zone 4 and 5 and above are interval type workouts because you're not able to sustain these. And then the end of the test is our peak or max. We're going to often refer to it as your VO2 max, and that's going to be your capacity. That's your functional or aerobic capacity. So you get a lot of information from one fairly short ventilatory test, and that can be very helpful as far as not only setting up your training parameters specific to you, as far as your heart rate zones and your power zones, but also you're able to use these benchmarks to see if the impact from your training is having its desired effect. In other words, we want to see if you're training for an endurance event, a right shift on most of these thresholds. If you're training harder and not seeing those shifts, then your adaptation isn't what you're looking for, so you need to change the way you're training. So in a nutshell, we're able to identify these zones, and then we're able to evaluate your training effect. When you're done the testing, we will be providing you with a 25-page summary report, very comprehensive. We'll identify any particular limits or red flag areas, and you'll be able to educate yourself on all the meanings behind what all this data is telling us. You'll also get your data put into your own private data dashboard. This is where we can look at your different performance or fitness parameters over time. We can also play around with the numbers. So we have comparisons to norms, we have your zones in here, and then we have different tools that you can use, like this diet tool, where we're using your metabolic data to come up with different scenarios or strategies related to your diet, and then also fueling during these various endurance events. So this is what we go over during the consultation. It's usually a Zoom type consultation after the assessment is completed, and we can talk about certain things specific to what your training goals are. Again, that's the cardio-metabolic exercise profile. It also includes your body fat percentage numbers. You're going to look at economy and efficiency values, lung function along the way. So a lot of information relative to your health and fitness. So to summarize here, if you look at your schedule now appointments, you have options for that cardio-metabolic profile. That's your key, the signature test that you definitely want to do at a minimum. And then we also have add-ons. You can do a resting energy expenditure test if you want to evaluate your caloric need throughout the day, as well as evaluate whether you're dependent more on fat or carbohydrates at rest. We have reevaluations, typically about half the price of the original, and then we have some multi-sport packages that you can save some money on doing a bike and a treadmill. All right, if you have any questions on any of this information, let us know. Just give us an email or a call, and we'll be glad to get back with you.